What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Dynasty Talk with Sam. Today's episode is going to be a little redraft, a little dynasty as well. We're going to do week one matchups to target. I'm here with literally my best buddy on the planet, Andy Nikkola. Andy, how you doing, buddy?
What's up? I'm good. It's been a bit of a weird day, but fantasy football season's right around the corner. I mean, just what? 2 more sleeps.
Two more sleeps.
2 more sleeps. I can't wait.
Yeah, it really is. It just makes you smile. There's really not a better way to put it than just to say we get happy.
Yeah, especially, it's the end of draft season. I feel like I've done all my drafts. My dog's excited for fantasy football season.
He knows.
So, yeah.
It's couch season. He knows the couch season's coming.
Yeah.
He's
like, oh no.
Lazy Sundays. So, yeah, I'm excited. Basically, what we're going to do today, week one matchups to target, is we're each going to go over 5 guys we think would be really good plays for week one. But we're going to leave out some of the guys that are obvious. Like, obviously, you're going to play Jamar Chase. We're not helping anyone by saying play Jamar Chase. So, guys who are in the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 flex consideration as well. So we're just going to get started today. So, Andy, who's your first player on your week one matchup to target?
Yeah, so I don't really have these guys in any particular ranking order, but if you want to start out fun, you want some action on Thursday night, I think Skai and Kadarius Toney are both pretty solid plays. Detroit was 30th best last year, aka 3rd worst in allowing passing yards by another team. They're 31st best against the wide receiver specifically. And now there's news that Travis Kelce might be out. Who knows how healthy he's going to be. Patrick Mahomes is a monster. He's got to throw it to somebody. So I think if you need to, both Skai and Kadarius Toney could see a decent amount of targets or, get in the end zone. I mean, at this point, if you're throwing guys out there for your flex, the over-under set to, I think it's 52.5 or 53. It's the highest scoring matchup the entire week. So people are going to be scoring points. And I think grab some players, from that Chiefs offense if you can and throw them into this matchup.
Yeah, 100%. I was actually just talking about Skai last week. So I am 100% on board with you. I think he's taken over the Juju role. I think he might get some of those Mecole Hardman touches, which I think would be the hope. I asked Cody last week, and I'm going to ask you again, who led the Chiefs in receiving touchdowns last year besides Travis Kelce? Mecole Hardman. That's
really? Wow.
That is free money if Skai Moore can get a couple of those. And I'm with you. I think Thursday night, huge over-under. I was literally looking earlier, and it was going up as I was looking at it. I checked it, and then I checked it again, and the over-under went up a point. I don't know how Kelce being out makes it go up, but I swear to God, it changed.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep going. My number one, I'm just going to stick with the same game, and that's going to be Jerrick McKinnon. Exactly like you were saying, high over-under. Detroit, literally, like you said, 3rd worst against the pass last year. They were literally atrocious.
Yeah.
They allowed so many yards through the air. Weirdly, a stat, though, that was surprising to me is I looked up so many yards through the air, weirdly didn't allow that many running back receptions. I think that's just an anomaly because they were getting torched by everyone else. I think if I think if Kelce's out, I think you just target the other pass catchers on this team because, like you said, they're going to score points. It's probably going to be through the air mostly. And I would be pretty happy to flex any of these guys. We're definitely not targeting them as wide receiver 1s, wide receiver 2s. But if you're staring down Jerrick McKinnon or Roschon Johnson or something, I definitely would have this with the tiebreakers. So I'm 100%.
I think that's a great play. Especially if Kelce's out, people are still going to be catching balls. McKinnon could be the number 1 target almost. He had some games last year where he was an absolute monster. So. Yeah.
For sure. And Cody is with us, Chiefs to the moon today.
Here we go.
So, love to see it. We're going to move on to our second players for the night. Just like Andy said, No specific order. This is just a random list of 5 people. So, Andy, who's your number 2?
Well, it's not a sexy pick. He's been around for a long time, but it's week 1. He's actually healthy. Give me Raheem Mohstert. They're playing the Chargers. This is a pretty high over-under. It's the second highest over-under of the week with 51 points. Chargers were, I think, the 5th worst against opponents' rush yards. They allowed an average of 144 rush yards per game. They're giving up points all over the place to running backs. And I think that with A-Chain still coming off of an injury and being a rookie, Jeff Wilson being out, I mean, Mostert could get the bulk of the touches here. It's going to be a high-scoring game, and he is crazy fast. And he hasn't been hurt yet. It's week 1. So throw him in this week before it inevitably happens later on for my man Raheem Mohstert.
Yeah, I love the start, man. Without Jeff Wilson sitting there, like, he was very good splitting touches last year. Yeah. So to assume he could even get maybe 60 to 70% with Jeff Wilson gone until A-Chain takes over, I say fire him up.
Yeah. I snagged him in our home league last night, and I think he's going to my starting lineup today. So
yeah, and just like you said, it's a great over-under. I think that game's going to be very high scoring. So it's definitely one to target. For my number 2 player tonight, I'm going to go with someone who really started to make people fall in love with him this summer. And this dude's just been flying up draft boards, and that's Jahan Dotson against Arizona. Not to put it plainly, but Arizona stinks. Arizona is a bad football team. And to go along with that, most likely no Terry McLaurin. We obviously do not have the ruling yet for if McLaurin will be there. But just last year, I mean, in 12 games, Dotson had 7 touchdowns. Now, regression is regression. He could keep up that rate. He could not keep up that rate. But something about Dotson is that dude knows how to high point the football for how tall he is.
Yeah.
And I just think the Commanders are going to put up some points. And if it's through the air, I think it's going to Dotson, especially if McLaurin is out.
Yeah, I love that pick. I love Jahan Dotson this year just in general, but this is such a juicy matchup to get him going. Yeah, I think that's a great start.
It's going to be one of those things where you're probably going to want him to get that touchdown in the first half, because come about midway through that third quarter, it could be 30-3, to be honest.
Which is exactly where my next guys come in. I'm thinking Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, for a lot of the same reasons you mentioned. They're playing the Cardinals. I think if you are deciding between a couple of flex plays and one of those players are playing the Cardinals this year, probably going to be a good idea to play him. I mean, they lost a bunch of key guys on defense. It seems like they're just trying to get Caleb Wilson at this point, and the Commanders love running the football. I mean, even the Cardinals last year with still J.J. Watt, Zach Allen, Brian Murphy allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to running backs, 3rd most receiving yards to running backs. I think both these guys are startable options. They're 7-point home favorite. So, yeah, Jahan Dotson gets a touchdown early, a few good yards, and then it's just Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson pounding the rock. And I think this is going to be a nasty game.
Let's say you had Gibson and Brian Robinson. Who would you be leaning towards in that situation?
I would probably be leaning towards Brian Robinson slightly. I think with them being such favorites, and if he's going to be the first and second down guy, I mean, there are already games last year where, he got 20, 25 carries. I could see him just leaning on him. I mean, Ron Rivera seems to absolutely love him. And yeah, poor Gibson, hopefully finally getting more receiving work this year. I think he will with J.D. McKissick on, but I would go Brian Robinson between the two. But I think both guys are good starts.
Yeah, I think that is just like why I said Dotson, I think that's a great game just to target if you have some of those starters. Yeah. If you're looking at maybe Sam Howell as a QB2 in a super flex league, they're going to have some short fields, and they're probably going to put some points up. He may not get those garbage time points you hope for, but like when you go up 25 points, you score 3 or 4 touchdowns, you don't need garbage time because you are scoring all your points and you're fine. So I think that one is what it is for me. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to a game that actually doesn't have that high of an over-under. I think when I was looking earlier, it was closer to 42. But I just love the matchup, and that's going to be Derek Carr against the Tennessee Titans. It's hard for me to say that as a Tennessee Titans fan, but I do not feel good when I watch their pass defense.
You shouldn't.
They look like you're playing Madden on like rookie, and you're just like, you guys do understand like you're supposed to guard the players instead of just letting them run free. Not that last year means everything, but they did give up the most passing yards per game last year. And that is even more impressive seeing as they run like a ball control offense where they're trying to get you to not even have the ball. And it really doesn't seem to matter. So I think if you are streaming quarterback or you picked one up late, deciding between a couple, I think Derek Carr is a great play. Especially, the New Orleans weapons, besides Alvin Kamara being out, obviously, they are healthy at the moment. They were not healthy last year. Obviously, our boy Michael Thomas, the walking whatever he is, I don't even know. And Olave was out for a bit last year. But it's week 1. They're going to be there. That game's in New Orleans. And I think Carr just has a great chance to have a very solid game where I don't think he's going to lose you your week at all.
Yeah, I almost put Michael Thomas on this list too. And, we're coming up with our 5 people because, I think the Saints passing attack is going to be pretty solid this week. So,
Yeah, another one that was kind of an honorable mention for me too would be Jahan Dotson for the same reason.
Yeah.
I think Tennessee is just a good team to target until they prove you wrong. For all we know, their pass defense could be greatly improved and this changes. But week 1 is when we know the least. That's what I always like to say. Like, as sad as that is, we know the least we're going to know throughout the entire NFL season.
Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be some surprises on defense. So you can only go with what, it was last year. And then if there's been any major additions, either through the draft or free agency. And at the same time, you never know. So.
Okay. So let's move on to your next player on the list today.
So up next, I got my guy, Tyler Higbee. He's still available in about 31% of leagues. So he might just be on the waivers. Maybe he's a late time second, a second tight end if somebody was late. And the Seahawks were the 32nd best team guarding the tight end last year, aka the worst. They allowed the most yards to the tight end position, the most fantasy points, especially with Cooper Kupp going through with his hamstring. I mean, they're going to have to throw the ball to somebody. And I think if you are in desperate need of a tight end, I think Tyler Higbee's a good one to target.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, with Kelsey possibly being out, people need tight ends right now. This is a very hot topic with Kelsey possibly being out, and you're going to know like Thursday. You're not going to have to make this call on Sunday. You're going to know. Tyler Higbee is a great guy to target. I even think he's a great guy to target as just a late dart throw season long, even with Cooper Kupp on the field. But especially with that Seattle narrative, I think it's been the last 3-4 years, Seattle has been terrible against the tight end. I feel like every season it is the same story.
I think Pete Carroll just loves some tight ends, and his offense, they have such great receivers in a run game. I think sometimes he forgets that they exist, and he's just like, you know what, we're going to let the tight ends eat, or it's just, I don't even know what that guy is doing out there. But yeah, they're just, I think season long, it's going to be a play your tight ends against the Seattle defense until they prove you otherwise.
We got a question here too. Would you consider Higbee in your flex over someone like DJ Chark or Marvin Jones?
If it's tight end premium, maybe, and we get word that Cooper Kupp is out, but I might lean Marvin Jones. That over under so high, I think there's a chance that he might get in the end zone. But Yeah, that's my take on it. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I would probably play Higbee even just in a standard.
Yeah.
I just think he's going to get more targets. And as much as the Rams could be an absolute dumpster fire without Cooper Kupp, even last year with Stafford out, Higbee had a decent season. So I think he's shown that he can get some targets even when that team isn't really producing anything.
Yeah, he's a good player. I feel like he's always kind of in that like middle tier, low tight end one for the last few years. He's not the sexiest player, the sexiest play, but he gets the job done. So.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm going to go on to my next player here, and I'm going to do a tight end as well. And that's going to be Gerald Everett in this Miami versus the Chargers game, the LA Chargers. I just think this game is going to be an absolute shootout. Tua, Herbert, both not healthy last year. They are both perfectly healthy right now. Yeah. There are wide receivers aplenty. And Kellen Moore coming over from, Dallas. I think Everett's going to get some more targets than people think. I think he's just going to get some cheap ones. I think he's going to get those Dallas Schultz or Dalton Schultz, not Dallas Schultz, although that would have been a good name for him.
New nickname.
Yeah, I just think Everett's a great streamer. If you're looking right now, I would put in a waiver for Everett, Jahan Dotson, Tyler Higbee, and have one of those guys on your bench in case Travis Kelce doesn't go.
Yeah, and those, if he's getting all those short little passes, if you're in PPR, those still count as a point. So it'll add up. I mean, he's still pretty big and physical. He's always got a good chance to score. And that's a solid play.
100%. So, Andy, who is your last matchup to target for week 1 today?
All right. Coming up, we're going to the quarterback position. This is a guy who in one QB leagues probably went undrafted. I went ahead and snagged him last night in our draft, went quarterback super late, pretty much based on this matchup, knowing that I might be streaming, and that's Jared Goff. Highest over under this week. If the Chiefs are allowing so many yards to the wide receivers, they're allowing a lot of yards and a lot of points to the quarterback. Third most fantasy points to the quarterback last year. I think this game is going to be a shootout. They still don't have Jameson, but Amon-Ra's out there, and my man Jahmyr Gibbs is out there. And I know he's not really in consideration for this, for where he was drafted, but Jahmyr Gibbs, give me the over on all of his receptions, all of his props this week. I think he's going to start with a monster game. The Chiefs allowed the most receiving yards to the running back last year, and I think he might be lining up in the slot. He might be lining up in the backfield. I think he's going to be on the field a lot. So give me Jared Goff.
Yeah, I think Goff is going to have one of those games where he has like 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, and 50 attempts, and you're like, did it look the prettiest? Not necessarily, but at the end of the game, 20 fantasy points is going to be on your team, and you're like, I'll take that every day. Yeah. And I like the Gibbs call, and I actually bet Amon-Ra over in receptions. I just think they're going to throw a lot, like you said.
They're going to have to.
Yeah, I think the attempts are going to be up. I think the Chiefs are coming out, and if Kelce doesn't play, I honestly don't think that really scares me away from the Chiefs scoring points. I think they're just going to be pissed off and they're still going to drop 40.
Is Patrick Mahomes healthy?
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs will score a lot of points. I think that's the season. He seems like he can get it done with anybody. I think it's going to be more if Kelce's there. And just to get back to Gibbs, guess who had more receptions last year? DeAndre Swift or Christian McCaffrey?
Well, I mean, I feel like this is a trick question, but Christian McCaffrey for the trick question.
DeAndre Swift.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're going to be throwing it to him. It's either receptions or targets. But either way, I was looking at that today, and I was like, that is shocking. So, give me that Gibbs.
That is very, very impressive. So, I'm going to go on to my last matchup to target here. And it's actually going to be a duo. And I'm going to go with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans at Minnesota. I know we might be talking about this a little bit as well, but Minnesota, second worst pass defense last year. And let's not forget the last memory we have of the Minnesota defense was Danny Dimes just absolutely torching them in the playoffs. Just torched him in the playoffs, torched him at the end of the season. And as much as I love Daniel Jones torching you through the air is not really a good thing.
It's not a good sign.
And I just think Godwin and Evans are, they're going to have their target shares. The attempts will be down this year, I think, without Brady there. But this is a matchup you play them in, right? If you drafted Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, you play them against Minnesota.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I'm starting Mike Evans this week, and I am excited about it. I mean, Minnesota lost Patrick Peterson, Cameron Dantzler, so they've got a new corner core coming in there. And Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are still Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I mean, they were great when it was Jameis Winston. They were great with backups. They're just great wide receivers. And I feel like especially Mike Evans has been great for so long, just putting up 7 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons that he's kind of overlooked. And yeah, now there's no Brady. They're not going to be throwing for a record amount of passes, but these guys are still so incredibly talented that they're going to demand the ball, Yeah,
and I truthfully do believe the saying or whatever generality you want to call it, that targets are earned, they're not given. And like, these guys are freaking very good players. They will get targeted, right? Like that's just how it's going to work. It's not as simple as playing targets in situations, but these guys are good players. Baker knows it. That team knows it. They're going to have plays drawn up to get the ball in their hands.
And Baker Mayfield, good quarterback, bad quarterback, he does love chucking it downfield. And if you're going to chuck it downfield and Mike Evans is down there, I'd say that's a pretty decent strategy half the time. And then you got Chris Godwin too. So yeah, I like both these guys.
Yeah, well, just to continue on, I think this is something else for you, but we're also going to each do one game to target where we're going to target just all of the weapons in a game. So Andy, what is your game to target this week?
I already talked so much about the Chiefs and the Lions. I think that one's just kind of an obvious choice, the highest over under. But coming back to the Bucs, I think that Bucs Vikings game. Obviously you're playing Justin Jefferson. You're probably obviously playing Alexander Mattison. But I think Rachaad White, I could even, if you're in desperate need, Baker Mayfield, this is a game where I think he could be started. Kirk, Jordan Addison, I think could have a real big game. Adam Thielen left so many vacant targets. And man, that one catch in the first preseason game where they called it incomplete and he's doing his toe drag swag just looked so good. So I think this is going to be a high scoring game with 2 pretty bad defenses indoors in Minnesota. I feel like Minnesota always starts the year out hot, mainly because they play the Packers a decent amount of the time week 1, and they always crush the Packers week 1, and it hurts my soul. So I think this is going to be, even though the over-under, it's at 45, which is kind of right in the middle, I could definitely see this one going over, and I'd play a lot of these guys.
Yeah, especially like you said, I think the Vikings weapons you're playing because they're going to score points. And then I think you're going to play the Bucs weapons because they're probably going to be chasing points. And those are both situations that we want to target, whether that's season long, whether that's DFS. Like Cade Otton could be a guy to throw out if you're looking for someone deep on your bench. Just like he's probably going to get some targets. They're going to score points, and they're going to be behind most likely to Minnesota, who is coming out at home. And I would think Minnesota is going to come out hot this year with, just like you said, Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, a lot of Suns. Hadn't really paid attention to that before, but saying them all 3 back to back and Cousins, they love it. But I'm with you. Yeah, over under is average, but I think that's more just the Bucs offense not being as trustworthy. I think game script could have that being very high scoring. So my game to target this week is someone we did briefly talk about early as well, but I'm going to go the Chargers against Miami. This game is home for the Chargers, 51 over under. That's the second highest game. Like you said, Chiefs game, highest scoring game. That's a cop-out answer. Of course, you're going to want to play all the guys from that game. Yeah. This is like a half cop-out, seeing as it's the second highest one. I just am so excited to watch Justin Herbert throw the ball without broken ribs, because last year people just forgot like how good he was, I think. And, they have Rashawn Slater back. They have all their weapons back. And I think Kellen Moore is going to be the difference for this team.
Yeah, it's going to be a different offense. And I mean, they took a great wide receiver in the first round too. So, I mean, there's so many weapons and Austin Eckler to throw to that. And, you know, how the amount of speed on Miami that, I mean, this could get real high scoring really, really quick too. I mean, I would be surprised if it's 14-14 ending the first quarter. You know, I wouldn't expect that, but I would be like, okay, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it could be one of those ones there where they're just going touchdown for touchdown, I think, pretty quickly. And whether that gets going in the first half or definitely the second half when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
Well, Andy, thanks for hopping on tonight, man. Stoked to have you on. I'm definitely looking forward to getting you on some more videos, doing some more matchups, maybe some more fun topics. Do you want to run down through your 5 players for us real quick, just so everyone watching can either write them down or just set their lineup right as they watch this video?
Just take it out right now. You see Skai on the bench. You can go ahead a little questionable. You can play him in your flex. Raheem Mohstert, pop him in there. Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, a tight end, Tyler Higbee, and then Jared Goff for my quarterback this week.
Love it. So to run down mine again, I have Jahan Dotson, Jerrick McKinnon.
I don't know if you're frozen on my end or you're frozen on your end, but you got a nice mustache.
For my end, we got Jahan Dotson, Jerrick McKinnon, Derek Carr, Gerald Everett, Godwin / Evans, the cop-out of saying both of them. All good games to target. And then obviously definitely target that Minnesota game and the Miami game. But sweet. Thank you guys for tuning in. And if you have any questions, you can hit me up on Twitter. Or if you have a question for Andy, hit me up and I will forward it to Andy and he will get back to you with an answer. So
I will do that. Carry your